I had barely taken a sip of the orange-infused water when she appeared, blonde bun, tight smile, that forced kind of politeness that's more blade than bomb, ma'am. She said, leaning in close like I was hard of hearing. You're in the wrong this is for premium guests. I didn't even blink. I reached into my tote and held up my boarding pass, 1C business class, right seat, right section. She didn't look at the pass, not really. Her eyes skimmed it, then narrowed her smile. Thinned. I see, she said, still hovering. Just give me one moment. I nodded slowly, deliberately. Take your time around me. I felt the flicker of glances, those quick darted looks. People give when they sense something off but don't want to get involved. A man 2 rows down shifted in his seat. A woman clutched her pearls. Literally, the attendant disappeared down the aisle. I adjusted my coat, crossed my legs, and looked out the window. Foggy, just like every time I fly through Chicago. Then I heard her heels click back. She wasn't alone. Behind her walked a man in a navy blazer and a perfectly styled wave of white hair. He looked expensive. His eyes didn't meet mine. This is Mr. Langford, she said briskly. We've had a small seating error. I'll need you to step aside just for a moment, please. Seating error. I turned toward her fully. My name is Leanna Brooks. That's my seat. What error? She held her hands up as if calming a child. No need to get upset. I wasn't upset, not yet, but the heat had started building in my chest. That slow rise of disbelief turned anger. I'm not moving, I said. The man still hadn't spoken. He kept his eyes on his phone, pretending not to hear. I paid for this seat. I booked it 2 months ago. If there's an error, it's not mine. I understand, ma'am. No, I cut in. You don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't be asking me to give up my seat so he can take it. She sighed as if I were the one being difficult. Just stand aside for a moment while we verify. I looked at Mr. Langford. Do you have a ticket for this seat? He shifted, still no eye contact. I was just told to come here. Of course you were, ma'am. The attendant pressed. Please don't make this uncomfortable. It already is. Her lips thinned. She leaned closer, dropping her voice. There's no need to escalate. I felt it then, that old familiar sting, that attempt to make me the problem. To make my calm refusal look like defiance. I stood slowly, not because she told me to, because I needed space to breathe. You want to verify something? I said fine, but I'm not leaving. I'm standing right here. She blinked, surprised. That's not protocol. I'm not moving. Not until someone tells me why a white man without a ticket gets ushered into my seat while I'm being treated like I snuck on the plane. A ripple of silence moved through the cabin. Someone nearby coughed. A child asked his mother what was happening. Mr. Langford finally looked up at me briefly. Look, I'm sure this is just don't, I said. Don't try to explain it away. The attendant looked flustered. Now she motioned for someone farther up the aisle. Another crew member approached. Problem here? He asked. She's refusing to move. The woman snapped. I said sharply. She has a name. Leanna Brooks, the one whose name is printed on that seat. The second crew member looked between us, then finally reached for my boarding pass. Studied it, really studied it. His brows creased. She's correct, he said. This is her assigned seat. The first attendant frowned. But Mr. Langford will need to be seated elsewhere, he said firmly. This is Ms. Brooks' seat. She looked like she'd swallowed her pride, and it got stuck. Halfway down, Mr. Langford gave a tight nod and moved off without a word. I sat back down slowly, my pulse still thudding. The water on my tray had ripples in it. The second crew member gave me a respectful nod. Sorry for the confusion, ma'am. Confusion, I asked, or assumption? He didn't answer, just turned away. Sat there staring ahead, fighting the urge to let tears rise, because it wasn't just about a seat. It never. I stepped to the side, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I was either glued to the floor or locked onto me like I was the problem. My blood simmered, not from the heat, but from the humiliation. I could still feel the sting in my chest from the manager's tone, calm on the surface, but thick with that same superiority I'd grown up hearing in 1,000 different voices. I breathed through my nose in, out slow, controlled. I wouldn't give them the show they were waiting for. I walked to the counter again, quietly, but with every step heavy like a heartbeat. A young woman at the register wouldn't meet my eyes. She fidgeted with a pen that didn't need fixing. Her fingers trembled just enough for me to notice. I kept my voice calm, dead calm. I just want what I paid for. She blinked fast. We were looking into it, ma'am. Her words were perfectly rehearsed, not for me, but for moments like this, for people like me. Behind me, I heard a dry chuckle, then a whisper. A white woman, mid-50s, maybe, leaned toward her friend and said, just loud enough for her disgust to echo, "It's always something with them." Then that word pierced deeper than it should have. Turned slightly, locking eyes with her. She didn't flinch, just stared back, lips tight, like she was daring me to speak, but I did not. Because I didn't want to, but because I knew what would happen if I did. The label would shift from customer to angry black woman, from patron to problem. I turned back toward the counter. Still no movement. How long? I asked. No response. The woman in the back was pretending to type on her screen like she was disarming a nuclear bomb. Someone cleared their throat behind me. Another whispered, "Just let it go, let it go. That's what we're always told, isn't it? Swallow it, smile through it, move on," while they rewrite the scene in their minds. I don't know what her problem was. She was being difficult. She misunderstood. I clenched my jaw, my arms folded, not out of patience, out of survival. And then I heard it, so soft I almost missed the voice, young, honest. I saw what they did. "I'm sorry." I turned slightly. She was maybe 14 top, sitting with her earbuds half in hoodie, pulled tight like she wanted to disappear, her cheeks flushed, her eyes wide and scared but also full of something rare truth. She looked like she hadn't meant to speak out loud, but she had, and it cracked the silence like lightning. I blinked at her. She looked down fast like she'd overstepped. I felt something shift in me, not rage this time, not humiliation, something quieter. Say she shouldn't have to carry that burden. She shouldn't be the only one here with enough backbone to say what she saw. I opened my mouth to thank her but stopped myself because saying thank you felt wrong. Why should telling the truth require gratitude? Still I nodded just once. She saw it. I know she did. Girl's eyes met mine for a second before she turned away, cheeks even redder now. A man in a golf shirt let out a long sigh. Another looked at his watch. They were bored, uncomfortable, not with what was done to me but with the fact that I hadn't walked away yet. The girl had seen it and I had felt it, but to everyone else this was just another inconvenience, just another one of them. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, still in my work clothes, staring at the wall like it might give me some kind of answer. My phone buzzed on the nightstand aloud. That sweet, quiet girl from seat 14C. She had barely spoken on the plane. Her message read, "I thought you might need this." There was a video attached. I hesitated. My finger hovered over the play button, heart pounding like it knew what was coming. I hit play. The screen was shaky, clearly recorded from someone's lap, but the audio crystal clear. "She doesn't look like she belongs up here," a voice said. "I know she's probably lost or lying. People like her always try to pull something." The words hit like a slap. My hand clutched my chest. It was a steward. The same man who smirked at me when he made me stand in the aisle like a criminal. I rewound it, played it again. Each word dug deeper. "She doesn't look like she belongs." My hands started to shake. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears slid onto my blouse. I called Ella. She picked up on the first ring. "Ella." My voice cracked. "Yeah, I didn't know if I should send it," she said quickly, "but the way they talked about you, I couldn't stay quiet." I couldn't stay quiet. I sniffled. "You recorded that while it was happening?" She hesitated. "Yeah, I knew it was wrong. I just didn't think anyone else would believe me if I said it out loud." There was a silence, not awkward, just heavy. "Thank you." I whispered. "You didn't deserve that," she said. "No one does." We hung up. I stared at the video again. My phone shook in my hand. My other hand hovered over Instagram. My thumb over new post. A war broke out in my head. What if this made things worse? What if I posted it and nothing changed? What if I became that woman, angry, loud, playing the race card? But then another voice whispered, my own. This time, what if they get away with it? Again he tapped upload caption. I belonged in that seat. I hit post. The screen flashed. The video was live. It felt like I'd just jumped off a cliff. My phone buzzed again. Comments already rolling in. This made me sick. "I'm so sorry. Who do I call? Let's make some noise. This is why we record everything." It spread like wildfire. Someone tagged the airline, then a journalist, then a lawyer. But I just sat there, frozen, breathing, feeling both scared and powerful all at once. The truth was out now and the phone didn't lie. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I could even breathe. 404,763 views and climbing. I blinked, refreshed the page, same number. Then higher. I sat up slowly in bed, my back stiff from a night of restless sleep, and reached for my phone. It buzzed in my hand like it had something to say. 124 new DMs. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the icon, then I tapped. "You're an embarrassment to the black community. You played the victim card again. Thank you. You gave me hope for my daughter. Who do you think you are? Queen, just queen." I dropped the phone in my lap and just sat there, breathing, swallowing. My heart thudded like it couldn't decide if it was proud or terrified. Footsteps came down the hall. Mom peeked in, the eyes soft. "You okay?" I nodded. "Sort of. It's viral." She stepped in slowly. The video, 400,000 views and counting. "People are," I trailed off. "People are people." She finished for me. She reached for my hand and squeezed. "But you're you." I held her gaze. "They're asking for interviews, journalists, podcasts, morning shows." Mom tilted her head. "You going to say yes?" I exhaled. "Only if they let me talk about the silence, too." Her brow furrowed. "The silence. The part where no one stood up. The part where a plane full of people watched and said nothing. Not one word." She nodded slowly. "That silence is loud, baby." Exactly. Another buzz. A new message. I looked down. "I used to work for that airline. You're not the first." "I'm ready to talk." My breath caught. I read it twice to be sure. "They've done this before. I'll speak up." Mom, I showed her the screen. She leaned in, read it, then met my eyes with a weight. I wasn't sure I was ready for this. Could change everything. She whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, but not just for me." Another ping, and another. My phone was a war zone. But this message, this one, cracked something open in me. Someone saw, someone knew, and someone was finally ready to say it out loud. Excuse me, I turned, already knowing where this was going. A woman, mid-50s, pearls, beige cashmere sweater, the kind who'd send back soup because it's too warm, was staring at me. "Are you the flight attendant?" I didn't flinch. "Not this time." I smiled. "No, I own the tech company that paid for this seat." Her lips parted like she'd misheard me, like I was supposed to be holding a tray of drinks instead of a MacBook, or she said, then added quickly, "That's wonderful." It wasn't. It wasn't wonderful. It was exhausting. I watched her shuffle awkwardly in her seat, suddenly too focused on her Kindle. The flight attendant, the actual one, walked past, white, blonde, cheerful, offering champagne. The woman took a glass without looking up at me. I declined. I was already full of smiles I didn't mean, full of patience I didn't owe, full of nods and soft laughs and the constant reshaping of myself into something less threatening. I leaned back, letting the leather seat hug me, my head tilted toward the window as the plane pushed into the sky. Clouds rose to meet us. "You handled that well," came a voice beside me, a young man, black, maybe late 20s, designer frames, confident, watching me over the rim of his whiskey. "Had to," I murmured. "If I bark every time someone steps on my dignity, I'd never stop barking." He chuckled softly. "Still, that line, 'I own the company.' Beautiful. That's the kind of line I dream of dropping." "Then start dreaming bigger," I said. "You'll need more than a comeback." He raised his glass. "To more than a comeback." I tapped his glass with my water. "I'm Liana. Derek, first time in first class." I smiled. "No, but every time it feels like I'm trespassing in my own success." He nodded slowly, serious now. "You think they see us as equals?" "No," I said. "I think they see us as exceptions, which is worse." He whistled low. "That's heavy. I live it. Every damn day." Silence stretched between us. Not awkward, just heavy with knowing. "My mother used to say," I added after a beat, "that racism isn't always a burning cross or a slur. Sometimes it's just a look, a question, a seat you're not expected to be in." He leaned forward. "So what do you do?" I looked at him. "I stay seated." That moment on flight 847, it settled something deep in me. It wasn't the first time I'd been mistaken for someone's help. It wouldn't be the last. But that was the first time I didn't shrink. I didn't apologize for taking up space. I let myself belong. And once you taste that kind of belonging, earned, defiant, unshakable, you never go back. The email sat in my inbox like a landmine. Subject line: exclusive interview request, national syndication. I stared at it so long the blue highlight faded. Derek leaned over my shoulder. "That's the one." I clicked it open. "Big network, primetime slot, national reach, they want me to come on." I said, "Barely above." A whisper dot. He folded his arms. "Of course they do. Your news now." I turned in my chair to face him. "They want a conversation about dignity." His jaw tightened. "No, they want a spectacle, a viral site." I shook my head. "They asked to talk. I can talk. They'll try to twist it," he said, voice lower now. "Make you the angry black woman, or worse, make you grateful." My throat dried up. I'd seen it happen. Women like me rewritten in real time by edits and lighting and clever framing. But something deeper stirred. Something quiet but firm. "Then I'll untwist it," I said. "Live." He didn't smile. Just stared like he didn't know whether to hold me or stop me. I added, "I'll go, but on my terms." He stepped back with char. No pre-screened questions. No panel. No cuts to commercial in the middle of my sentences. "I want the floor for 5 minutes, uncut." "You think they'll agree?" "They need the ratings," I said, standing up. "They'll agree." He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just be ready." I met his eyes. I've been ready my whole life. The next morning I made the call. The producer sounded excited, maybe too excited. "Liana, we are so honored. We have followed your story and we're absolutely thrilled to no edits." I cut in. "And I won't be seated next to anyone trying to debate my existence." Silence on the other end. Then, "Well, let me speak with the team and see what we can do." "You called me," I reminded her. "Not the other way around." A pause. "Understood." I hung up before she could butter me up again. I sat by the window for a while, watching the wind mess with the neighbor's flag. Derek brought me coffee. Black, hot, no sugar. Just how I needed it today. He didn't say anything for a while. Then softly, "You're not just doing this for you." You know," I said. "But I'm not doing it for them either." He nodded. "Say what you need to say, then come home." "I will." I looked out the window again. "But I might not be the same when I do." His hand found mine, warm and grounding. "Good." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear. At least not fully. It was something else. A quiet storm inside me. I thought about every little girl watching. Every mother. Every tired, unheard woman who had swallowed her pain just to survive another day. I wasn't going there to be polite. I was going there to tell the truth. And this time, no one was going to cut to commercial. The green room felt colder than it should have been. Not in temperature, in tension. I could feel it humming beneath the surface, vibrating under my skin like a silent alarm. I stared at the tray of bottled waters and untouched pastries on the table. Nothing in that room was meant for me. Not the snacks, not the space, not even the chair I was sitting in. He walked in wearing a smirk and a silver tie. The airline's lawyer, slick, practiced, confident, like someone who's gotten too used to cleaning up corporate messes with words instead of justice. "Miss Bennett," he said, extending a hand like this was some friendly negotiation. I didn't take it, "Liana." He cleared his throat. "Liana, then." I just want to clarify a few things before the segment begins. I raised an eyebrow. Clarify or control? He chuckled too quickly. There seems to be a misunderstanding. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, locking eyes with him. What part, exactly, was misunderstood? That I was mistaken for staff? Or that my name, face, and ticket still didn't get me seated in my rightful place? He shifted, just slightly. We acknowledge the unfortunate circumstances, but legally, no violation of federal policy occurred. I laughed short, sharp, bitter. Is that what this is to you? A policy checkbox? You dragged a paying passenger to the back of the plane and let a white woman sit in my seat. Tell me again how that's a misunderstanding. He looked down at the folder in his hands. There was confusion regarding boarding assignments. The gate agent was trained by you. I cut him off. Representing your airline, wearing your uniform, following your culture. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I saw something flicker behind his eyes, maybe frustration, maybe fear. I didn't let up. You came here to spin a narrative before I get on that stage, but let me make something clear. I stood up, and suddenly he wasn't towering over me anymore. I'm not here for your compromise. His jaw tightened. Liana, the network has agreed to allow a brief joint statement. We'd prefer if you didn't make this personal. I stepped closer. It is personal. You didn't drag a passenger, you dragged me. A black woman who dared to buy a seat in first class and expected to stay in it. He tried again. We're willing to discuss training improvements, community outreach, even compensation. I narrowed my eyes. Say it on air. What you want to fix this. Start by admitting what you did. Not here, not in this green room on live TV. No scripts, no legalese. His smile cracked. That's not how these things work. I folded my arms. Then maybe you're not the right man for this job. He took a step back. You realize this could escalate. Publicly accusing a company of racism without ironclad proof could be dangerous. My voice dropped low, controlled. I have proof in every look, every silence. Every time someone walked past me like I was invisible. He stayed quiet. That silence said more than his whole folder full of denials. The producer peaked in 5 minutes. I nodded without looking away from him. See you out there. He didn't move, just stood there, blinking like I'd slapped him with the truth. And maybe I had. Maybe he realized finally that I wasn't here to play their game. I was here to burn their rulebook because I wasn't the one who should be nervous. They were. The studio lights warmed my skin, but it wasn't comfort, it was pressure. My palms were damp. I could feel the mic clipped near my collarbone. The countdown echoed in my earpiece. 3, 2, the red light blinked on. I looked directly into the camera. I didn't flinch. The host gave a practiced smile. Joining us tonight is Liana Brooks, whose recent story has sparked national outrage. Liana, thank you for being here. I nodded. My voice was steady but low. Thank you for having me. Let's start from the beginning, she prompted. People want to know why now. I folded my hands in my lap, then let them go, because silence got me nowhere. A pause, a cue. The screen behind me lit up with clips, grainy security footage, black and white stills, me being stopped at the door, the look in the hostess's eyes, the way the manager whispered behind the counter. The moment I said, I own this place, and the room froze. There was a collective gasp from the live audience. I didn't turn around. I'd lived those seconds too many times in my head. I didn't get angry, I said, my voice low, but full. I got tired. The host leaned in. Tired of what? I stared ahead. Of making myself smaller, with playing nice so I'm not seen as aggressive. Of being brilliant in the back room while someone else gets credit. Of working twice as hard and still being asked if I'm the janitor. The audience was silent. She shifted in a seat. The executive team of the restaurant group released a statement. They said we didn't see race. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I turned to face the man across from me, Mr. Carston. Silver hair, flawless suit, thin smile stretched to tight. You didn't see race, I repeated, tilting my head. That's the problem. He blinked, as if shock-eyed. Address him directly. You hired 5 white managers in 5 years, I continued, while every black applicant ended up on cleanup or prep. You pushed me to the back even when I tripled revenue. You didn't see race because you didn't have to. We promoted based on performance. He replied, voice calm to calm. Not appearance. I leaned in. Performance. I opened 2 locations. I ran your flagship. I built your menu. And yet I wasn't even on your About Us page. He cleared his throat. That wasn't intentional. No, I said. My tone sharp now. It was systemic. A murmur rippled through the audience. I turned back to the host. This isn't just about me. It's about every black woman who's had her ideas stolen. Her voice quieted. Her name mispronounced in meetings she was overqualified to lead. Applause started on the left side, then rolled across the studio. I wasn't done. It's about how I had to prove over and over that I belonged in the building I designed. How I was mistaken for the help more times than I can count. How being excellent wasn't enough unless I was also silent. The host looked stunned. Liana but she didn't finish. The feed behind me changed. Now it showed social media comments real time. Thousands pouring in. support, outrage, recognition. The viewer count on the live stream doubled, then tripled. One read, I feel this in my bones. Another, this is what courage looks like. Then, hire her, elect her, follow her. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Karsten tried again, voice thin. We're reevaluating our leadership structure. I raised an eyebrow. You mean now that people are watching? The room burst into claps again, but I wasn't smiling. I built something you took credit for, I said, and now the world knows. The red light on the camera stayed on, so I kept going. I didn't ask to be a symbol. I just wanted to be seen, heard, paid fairly, treated with respect. That should never have been too much. The host's voice cracked slightly. What do you hope comes from this? I breathed in slowly. Let it out. That one less black girl has to shrink herself to survive. The lights dimmed slightly as we went to break. Applause didn't stop. Karsten stood up quickly, as if the seat burned. He didn't look at me, but the audience did. The camera did. The world did. And this time I didn't look away. I sat in the quiet of the backstage room, the applause still echoing behind me like a heartbeat I wasn't sure I believed was real. My hands trembled not from fear this time, but from something I hadn't felt in a while. Power. Real, earned, rightful power. The door creaked behind me. I turned, expecting another executive with a rehearsed smile and a hollow apology. But it was a woman in a faded janitor's uniform, her rubber gloves still tucked in her waistband. She stood with her hands folded like she'd been waiting years for this moment, not minutes. You don't know me, she said softly. I nodded. No, but I saw you in the hallway earlier. I saw you, too, she whispered. And I just wanted to say you spoke for all of us today. Her voice cracked, undid me. I wasn't sure I had, I said, my throat thickening. I wasn't sure anyone would hear me past the headlines and the cameras. All we heard, she said, stepping closer. We felt it. Every word you said, every time your voice shook, baby. It was like you carried every woman who's ever had to bite her tongue and clean up behind someone who called her girl. I didn't mean to cry, but I did. I reached out and hugged her. She smelled of bleach and resilience, the kind of strength they never put in corporate brochures. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for telling me. She stepped back and wiped her cheek. Don't let them use you for their diversity quota. Now, you hear I won't, I said. They don't get to polish their image on my pain. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that came with years of warnings. Good, then go take your seat. The door opened again. It was Diane from HR. She looked different now, smaller, or maybe I'd just grown. Ms. James, she said, her voice steady but stripped of the authority it once carried. The board would like to offer you a permanent role as a racial equity consultant. Full autonomy, executive-level pay. We believe your voice could help shape a better future for the airline. I stared at her for a long time. Then I asked, do you want change? Or do you just want peace? Her face twitched. I don't. Follow. I stood up. Because peace is easy. It's press releases and panels and one black woman on a brochure. But change starts with discomfort. It starts with consequences. She cleared her throat. We're ready to listen, to learn. Good, I said. Then start with the ones who stood silent. The ones who watched what happened to me on that plane and said nothing. The ones who smiled at me in boardrooms but let me bleed in that aisle seat. She opened her mouth. I held up my hand. I'm not here for cosmetic change, I said. I want restructuring. I want training led by people who've lived this. I want partnerships with community advocates, not the ones you pick, the ones we trust, and I want every crew member who's ever been reported for racial discrimination reviewed thoroughly. Diane swallowed hard. Understood, and don't call me Ms. James, I added. Call me what they called me when they dragged me off that plane. Silence. I remember what they said. I continued, my voice calm now. Ma'am, you're being aggressive. That's what they called me. Aggressive, angry, emotional. You want me to consult? Then let me start with this truth. Those labels are a weapon. Diane blinked. I leaned in. You're not hiring a consultant. You're inviting in a storm. She nodded. Then we welcome it. I almost believed her, almost after she left. I sat again, looked down at the badge still clipped to my blouse. Leona James, keynote speaker. I remembered when they called me a disturbance. Now they were calling me a leader. Funny how fast the tide turns when cameras start rolling. The janitor had left, but her words echoed louder than the applause. You spoke for all of us. I closed my eyes and whispered to the silence. I'll keep speaking. I'm not done, because for the first time in my life, the seat that was mine wasn't just in the aisle. It was at the table. Asterisk. I didn't expect to cry. But there I was, on my old couch in my torn college hoodie, gripping the edges of the blanket like it might hold me together. The news anchor's voice cut through the room like a church bell. We take you now to a live press conference with the CEO of Meridian Airlines regarding the recent incident involving passenger Leona Cross. I froze. The screen flickered, then went clear. There he stood, the man who ran it all. Black suit, no podium, no script, just a mic in his hand, and guilt hanging from his face like heavy drapes. He took a shaky breath. We failed, he began, voice uneven. We saw her, but we didn't see her. My throat clenched. We didn't protect her. We didn't protect her child. We didn't even ask ourselves why she was the only one asked to leave the plane. He paused, blinked hard because we thought we were being careful. But what we were being was blind. I couldn't breathe for a moment. My heart pounded in my chest like it wanted to answer him. He kept going. No paper, no teleprompter. Just truth spilling out like something he'd been choking on. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was years of silent comfort with subtle racism buried under policies and procedures. And Liana crossed, he said my name like it was sacred. Had to carry the weight of all of it in front of her child, in front of strangers, on national news, and we didn't even flinch. Tears were already sliding down my cheeks. We are ashamed, and we are changing everything. He stepped aside, and a screen appeared behind him. New policy, immediate suspension, pending review for all staff in racially motivated complaints, mandatory racial bias training for all employees, passenger advocate on every flight. He whispered. Oh my God, my phone buzzed on the table, texts from friends, co-workers, people I barely remembered. But I couldn't look. I was watching something I thought I'd never see an apology that didn't sound like a lawyer wrote it. He looked directly into the camera. To Ms. Cross, we are sorry. And from this day forward, your story will be out. Standard. I pressed my hand against my mouth. Kai came running in from the kitchen with his juice box. Mummy, you okay? I couldn't speak. I just nodded and pulled him close. He looked at the screen. Is that the man from the airplane? No, baby, I said softly. That's the man trying to make it right. He snuggled into me and whispered, you're famous now. I laughed through the tears. No, but maybe people will start listening now. The press conference ended. The anchor was stunned into silence for a few seconds before speaking again. I leaned back, staring at the black TV screen, my reflection barely visible. I looked tired, but lighter. Maybe I wasn't invisible anymore, and maybe, just maybe, my story mattered. The wheels of my carry-on thudded softly as I walked down the jet bridge. My heart should have been racing just like it had last time, but it WASN single quotes T. This time. It was steady. The flight attendant at the aircraft door beamed like I was someone she actually wanted to see. Welcome, Ms. Grant. Can I get you anything? Her voice was warm, not forced, not polite in that fake robotic way, real kind. I blinked for a second too long before answering. No, thank you. I'm good, I said, offering a small nod. She smiled again. We're honored to have you. I stepped inside and walked down the aisle, heels clicking, head high. People didn't avoid my eyes this time. They looked. When they looked, they knew exactly who I was. That's her, someone whispered from a few rows up. That's the woman from TV, the lawyer. I didn't need to look. I could feel the eyes, the shifted weight in seats, the quick breaths. A middle-aged white man sitting across the aisle leaned toward his wife and murmured, she's the one who sued that airline. His wife nodded. 1 million, they said. I heard it all, but I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I walked past the very row I'd been yanked from just weeks ago, past the ghost of my own humiliation, and then I stopped. For C. The same seat. The one where my body had gone stiff when that steward had leaned down and asked me, are you sure you belong here? I stared at it for a beat too long. My chest tightened. I had a different ticket this time, first class, far ahead. But I told the attendant who was loading bags in the overhead bin, I'd like to sit here. Is that okay? He blinked. You want this seat? I nodded. Yes, right here. He gave a puzzled look, shrugged, and stepped aside. Sure, it's yours. I lowered myself slowly into the seat, letting the armrest support me like a friend. My palms ran over the cushion. Same leather, same view of the aisle, but everything else different. I wasn't the same woman. A younger black girl, maybe 19, walked by and gave me a wide-eyed smile. You're Liana Grant, right? I met her gaze. Yes, I am. She hesitated, then said, You did something real big. I tilted my head. I just told the truth. She smiled shyly and moved on. Across the aisle, the same man who'd whispered before caught my eye. He leaned over again, double quotes, Ms. Grant, what you did taking them to court like that? That was, well, I think it made a lot of people think twice. I think, turned my head slowly. Think twice about what he looked sheepish, how they treat people who they assume is supposed to be where. I held his gaze. That assumption almost cost me my dignity. It did cost that airline millions. He cleared his throat. Well, I think you made your point. I gave a half smile. I wasn't trying to make a point. I was reclaiming my seat. His face flushed a bit. He looked down. Fair enough. The plane began to fill, but no one questioned me this time. No one hovered. No one tapped my shoulder and asked for proof of my worth. A different attendant came over. Ms. Grant, would you like a glass of champagne before takeoff? I shook my head. Just water. Thanks. As she walked off, I closed my eyes for a moment. I could still feel the humiliation from that day, like a bruise under the skin. But it wasn't the only thing I felt anymore. Now there was peace, quiet, triumph, and maybe a little bit of power. I opened my eyes and caught my reflection in the dark window. My posture was relaxed, but my eyes, they were different now. Steady, knowing this seat, this very one, they thought they took it from me. But here I was, and no one was ever taking it again. The auditorium lights dimmed slightly as I stepped up to the podium, my palms still damp despite how many times I wiped them on my skirt. I could see their faces, rows and rows of students, mostly white, looking back at me with wide eyes. Notebooks open, ready to learn. But I wasn't here to teach a class. I was here to show them what they'd never been taught. I took a breath. "It's not about the seat," I began, my voice steady. "It's about being seen." A few pens froze midair. A girl tilted her head. I didn't care about sitting at the front of the plane because I wanted attention. I cared because the second I stood up for myself, I became invisible to the ones in power and a problem to those watching silently. A hand shot up, eager, hesitant, a young man with glasses. "So, how do we, what does being an ally actually look like?" I nodded. "It looks like discomfort," I said. "It feels like stepping out of line when your privilege tells you to stay quiet. It sounds like using your voice when silence would protect you." Another hand. This time a girl in a hoodie. Her voice was soft. "But what if we say the wrong thing?" "Then you say it wrong," I answered. "And then you listen, learn, and say it better next time. What you don't do is say nothing at all." Because silenced, I paused, letting the words hang. Silence is where injustice grows. A ripple went through the room. Someone near the front leaned forward. "But isn't it not our place to speak for someone else?" "You're not speaking for us," I said. "You're speaking with us, alongside us. When a door is being slammed in our face, sometimes we need someone on the other side holding it open." A silence followed. But this one wasn't apathy, it was reckoning. "I used to think racism looked like burning crosses and slurs," I said, my voice growing firmer. "But it looks like HR ignoring the complaint. It looks like your friend laughing at that joke, and you choosing not to say anything. It looks like someone calling my natural hair unprofessional and you pretending you didn't hear it." The auditorium grew heavy with breath and guilt. "You don't have to change the world by yourself," I continued. "But you do have to stop walking past the fire and pretending you don't smell the smoke." A hush fell over them like snow. Then, quietly from somewhere near the back, I heard a voice. I was that silence, a girl whispered, almost too soft for the mic. I saw it so many times and I didn't say a word. My throat tightened. I looked toward the voice. She was small, blonde, hugging herself. Tears streaked her face, and her shoulders trembled like she'd been holding that truth inside for years. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. I stepped from the podium and walked down the steps, my heels echoing like steady heartbeats. The room didn't move. All eyes followed. I stood in front of her. She looked up at mirrored eyes, swollen with shame. "I don't want to be that silence anymore," she whispered. I reached for her hand. She flinched at first, then let me hold it. "Then don't be," I said. "Start today." She nodded. Around us, others were crying too, some silently, some wiping their cheeks in disbelief, like they hadn't expected a lecture to become a mirror. "You don't get to choose your silence," I told the room, "but you do get to choose what comes after it." And in that moment I wasn't invisible. I was seen, not for the color of my skin, but for the fire in my voice. And maybe, just maybe, they were finally ready to see the world through my eyes. I stood at the long glass table in Washington, D.C., staring at a room full of people who once didn't believe I belonged in first class, let alone here. "Are you ready, Miss Grant?" the moderator asked, voice calm but watchful. I looked down at the thick draft in front of me, pages and pages of policies, procedures, and promises. "I've been ready my whole life," I said, gripping the edge of the table. "Let's begin." An older white man 2 seats down cleared his throat. "We appreciate your passion, Ms. Grant, but we must ensure the language here doesn't." "How do I alienate airline partners?" "You mean the same partners that treated black and brown passengers like cargo?" I snapped. "I'm not here to make them comfortable. I'm here to make justice non-negotiable." Murmurs rippled through the room. I could feel it again, that fire I thought I left back on the tarmac all those years ago. But this time, I wasn't alone. Across from me, a young Latina woman in a navy blazer nodded subtly, her eyes fierce. A South Asian professor adjusted her glasses and leaned in. "This clause," I pointed, tapping the page, "requires anti-racism training for every employee from check-in to cockpit, not sensitivity training, not awareness workshops. Real accountability." A man in a tailored suit leaned back. "And who defines accountability?" "I do," I said without flinching. "The woman who was told her afro was a safety hazard. The family forced a D-board because someone didn't feel safe sitting next to them. We do. The passengers who've been silent too long." My voice didn't shake. "Not anymore." They went quiet. Then the woman to my left asked, "And the title? We need to finalize that for the docket." I hesitated, and then I said it out loud for the first time. "The Grant Passenger Rights Act." Silence. Goosebumps rose on my skin. "That's powerful," someone finally whispered. "It's personal," I replied. "Which is exactly what this is, personal, because every name on this act will carry the stories of people who were ignored, dismissed, humiliated. And now we're rewriting what it means to belong." My thoughts drifted briefly to the beginning. The gate agent who looked through me like I was invisible. The flight attendant who sneered when I said I had a first-class ticket. The man who told me people like you don't fly up here, and now people like me write the law. Another hand rose. What about enforcement mechanisms? Each airline that violates this act, I said clearly, will face federal penalties, public accountability reports, and passenger reparations. We're not suggesting change, we're demanding it. I felt the room shifting. No one rolled their eyes now. No one smirked. They were listening, because this time, they couldn't look away. Double quotes. Ms. Grant, the moderator said again, softer now. Would you be willing to read the opening clause aloud for the record? I unfolded the front page, took a breath that tasted like dignity, and read, every passenger, regardless of race, gender, appearance, or origin, is entitled to dignity, safety, and equal treatment while in transit in ground or in air. I looked up. We're not just rewriting policies, we're rewriting the manifest. The woman next to me whispered, welcome aboard, Liana. I smiled, not the polite smile I used to fake when someone made me feel small, a real one, because, now, I wasn't surviving the system, I was changing it. I stared at the blinking cursor. Blank. Then my fingers moved, not because I was ready, but because silence had never protected me. You never saw me, I typed. You never saw me as human. I paused. My reflection in the dark screen stared, back jaw clenched, shoulders tight, eyes tired but clear. I heard Mum's voice in my head, soft but steady. Speak, baby. Don't ever let them swallow you. So I kept typing. To you, I was noise in the way, a seat that shouldn't have been filled, skin that didn't match the upholstery. You watched me like I was a threat, then acted surprised when I knew the law better than you. I remembered that woman's face on the flight, her lips tight, her hand hovering over the call button like I was contagious. I remembered her whisper, they let anyone sit in first class these days. And my reply, apparently so. Even the ignorant. I let that memory sit, bitter but not broken. I clicked send. The op-ed went out. My truth, raw and bare, waiting for the world to flinch. 2 days later, I was invited on every network. Every host wanted the same thing, a calm conversation, balanced views, a polite back and forth where I smiled through clenched teeth and they nodded like they cared. I refused them all. Until one, a local morning show hosted by a black woman with salt and pepper curls and fire in her eyes. She didn't ask for balance. She asked for honesty, so I sat across from her, mic clipped, heart thudding. Why write it now, Liana? She asked. Why? This moment I didn't blink, because that plane was just a symptom. My whole life I've been asked to shrink, smile, wait my turn, sit in coach, and now I make the rules. When the segment aired, my inbox overflowed. Messages from strangers, from little black girls, from mothers, from pilots, and one from her. The woman on the flight, no subject line, no apology. Just, I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't reply. She still didn't see me. The airline called to a scripted voice on the other end. We're conducting an internal review. We want to ensure our commitment to inclusion. We hope you'll consider flying with us again. I cut in. I'm not waiting for your commitment. I am the standard now. Silence. Then, a quiet, understood. The next time I booked a flight, I chose the same seat. First class, the number etched in memory like a scar. I walked down that jet bridge with my head high. Every step heavier, with memory, but firmer with resolve. I stepped into the cabin. This time no one looked away. No stares, no tightened lips. No reaching for authority. The flight attendant smiled like she meant it. Welcome aboard, Ms. Matthews. I took my seat, crossed my legs, pulled out a fresh notebook, and on the first page I wrote, this seat was never about class, it was about worth. Then I closed the cover, and we took off.